is a good man. He died for your sins. Not Greg's.
No.
That might be one of the funnier things I've ever said.
MLB Live Before Lock. We are sponsored here by Underdog Fantasy. I'm joined by my dear friends, Eric Lindquist, the Cuck Bagel, Jordan Klein. He's here controlling the sticks, pressing the buttons, making shit show up on the screen. If you guys can do us a favor while you're watching, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you've got any questions for us as we go here, add me in the Discord channel. It's one of the perks being a Stochastic member. You come in the Discord. Eric, you seem in a chipper mood today. YouTube, you could throw some stuff in there. We'll be looking at those and seeing what it is that you guys are talking about and asking questions about in there. Eric, what's going on with you today?
I guess I'm in a chipper mood, even though you came in with the energy of 1,000 suns. Mainly, I said a funny thing, and Jordan Klein laughed. And anytime Jordan Klein laughs, it's infectious. He has that jolly green giant nature to him. Just a nice, big old guy. Some people would say that he's a ninja. I'm not one of those people, but it is what it is. We're very excited to start the show now. MLB, let's party.
Yeah, man, we got baseball today. I know you had a pretty good baseball slate last night. I found out because you told me about it right before the show started. So what happened on the baseball slate last night for you?
Jonathan Cannon ended up on 28% of him, and he was 7% in pretty much everything there. Had a couple of top 5 finishes and mini maxes, and just overall a really nice night. Anytime you 5-6x in baseball, you're pretty happy with that in tournaments. That is a sustainability thing. So buys me in a couple of days here to throw up some bagels. But overall, like, we were talking through some strategy of some stuff yesterday, and Alec Marsh, man, even though I had 55% of him, even though he was the guy that I thought you wanted to get to, having some of that Oakland exposure really, really paid off for me. Both of those lineups that finished top 5 had that, along with Cannon, a pretty rare combination.
Yeah, there was some interesting lineups towards the top of GPPs yesterday. The Dodgers crushed again for the second consecutive slate. And
all in the 9th inning.
Yeah, a slate where it didn't look like the Dodgers were going to be all that good. And then the Rockies, just the most insane collapse you will ever see in a baseball game. And I know people are kind of up in arms about, like, oh, should it have been called a swing on the check swing that Teoscar Hernandez had right before the home run he hit? Out of curiosity, because I'm not exactly sure. I don't know about you, Eric. I never knew what the actual rule was for a check swing in the MLB rulebook. It's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Have you ever looked up the rule?
Never looked up the rule, no. Just, I have an idea of what it's supposed to be based on watching millions of baseball games, but no, I've never seen the letter of the law.
All right, so I'll ask you then, what do you think it's supposed to be? You're probably wrong. I'll lead it off with that, because it was not what I thought it was.
So check swing, my assumption is that if it clears the plate with the bat, then it should be a strike. And they always have a third base umpire for lefties or first base umpire for righties that, you know, kind of inform it, where they challenge it over where a guy behind the plate can't see it. So my assumption is that I'm wrong. It's probably something else.
It is umpire's discretion as to whether the player tried to swing or not. That's it. That's the rule.
What?
Yeah. I had never heard of that being the rule or not. So it was just because on the broadcast, and I was watching the Rockies broadcast, where obviously on the Rockies broadcast, like, this is the worst call we've ever seen in our entire lives. Then go to the Dodgers broadcast, like, oh, it's kind of questionable. And I'm like, what is the actual rule? Because, like, I've seen people say, did he break the wrist? Like, did the bat cross the plate or not? You go to the rule book, and it's literally just umpire's discretion if the umpire thought the player made an attempt to offer the ball or not. So with that being the rule, literally there kind of are no bad check swing calls, because just like the rule is literally just whatever the umpire thinks.
That is so ridiculous. I've never thought about that. It still doesn't make it any better. The Angel Hernandez, Kyle Schwarber situation, that is still the one that baffles me the most. Under any rule, that was not a swing, but Kyle Schwarber, people who real ones know what I'm talking about. That's like the check swing that I will always remember, watching it live and being like, there is no way. Bryce Harper had a pretty bad one too, ironically, another Philly, but there is no doubt that is a ridiculous rule.
Yeah, so for the people who are enraged about it, it seemed like a swing to me in real time. All that aside, though, I mean, if you're up 9-4 with, like, what was it, 1 out, 9-4 in the 9th inning, you probably should win that game more often than not, no matter what events occurred after that. And then Jason Hayward hits a pinch hit grand slam. Also kind of related to the Teoscar Hernandez and the check swing ruling there. There's also a ridiculous one the time before where Will Smith called for a timeout. It looked like the umpire was granting him the timeout, and the pitcher just threw the ball right down the middle. It got called strike 3 with Will Smith not being in the batter's box. There was all kinds of weirdness in that game, which ended up with the Dodgers being a massively high-scoring team last night, and something that we're going to have to talk about again for tonight's slate, Eric, because once again, we have another game at Coors Field. And one thing I want to ask you before we start breaking down the individual pitchers and the individual hitters and stacks and whatnot is, what is your overall outlook on the slate? What are your priorities? Is it paying up at offense? Is it paying up at pitcher? Which direction does it look like your lineups are going to be leaning?
We have some awesome pitchers. And I will say, when you get these slates with like 7 or 8 guys that I think are pretty viable, even on a short slate like this, what happens is it ends up really flat at the top. You can kind of make stands on your guys or the people you think are in the best spots. And then you can really ramp up your exposure in terms of offenses, especially in these prime spots. I think for me, tournaments are going to kind of be made or broken based on how the Dodgers and then one other stack end up performing out of my 150. Obviously, I'm going to be pretty flat with some of these other teams. Nothing that I'm like completely writing off as I'm looking at my exposures, but pitcher, I've got a pretty decent stand on like 3, 4, 5 guys, and I'm kind of okay with it. It's kind of hard to make a quote unquote mistake at pitcher today.
Here's my favorite thing about today's slate. My absolute favorite thing: 0 tornadoes in the forecast.
Hey,
0.
How sharp was my Pablo Lopez play yesterday in the premium Discord? I felt pretty good about that. About 15 minutes before first pitch, I was looking at Doppler with you after the show, and I was like, it looks like it's going to hit about an hour from now. It looked like about an hour. So I just shorted 6.5 strikeouts wherever you could find it. Full unit send for the people. And sure enough, 4th inning, you run into some issues for Pablo Lopez. Ends up getting out of the game, 3 strikeouts only. And I think you removed him from all your lineups. I didn't get him out of all of mine, but Pablo Lopez, that was a great call by you as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing that I'm bummed by after we were talking about it a little bit is I did have an overweight stand to raise stacks, which wouldn't have ended up mattering because a bunch of other teams ended up scoring a ton. But, you know, something that you and I were talking about, we just decided to remove that game after the show and after we got closer to lock. But I mean, it was hard to roster good pitchers no matter where you went yesterday. There was like some contrarian ones, like you had some Canton lineups that did well, but most of the pitchers that had any sort of ownership yesterday kind of sucked yesterday.
Yep, that was it. I mean, for me, Cannon and having Oakland exposure, period, that was the difference maker, because then everybody had Dodgers.
All right, let's start some analysis, which the only way to do is got to be starting with my cowboy hat coming out. It is the first time that we've got headgear back on the show. So as you know, we used to have the old bucket hat. That is out of the equation. Now when I want to be smart, put on the cowboy hat. So we got a new little prop to the show, and this is really going to help me breaking down today's slate. Starting with the pay-up options, Eric. We've got 5 of them on the slate. We've got Garrett Cole making his season debut at $9K. Garrett Crochet, he's been a monster. He's $9,200. Joe Ryan is $9,500. Freddie Peralta is $9,600. Cole Ragans is $9,800. Of these pitchers, Cole Ragans, 35% on. Freddie Peralta, 22% on. Joe Ryan, 26%. And Garrett Crochet, 16% on. Eric Lindquist, who's your preferred pay-up option today?
I can't take you seriously. Did you just hat tip me?
Yeah. It's a cowboy greeting. Your turn.
Okay.
People in the chat, this is absolutely a cowboy hat. It's a cowboy hat. Yeah, Obi-Wan's is Ranger Greg. Yeah, I'm Ranger Greg. I keep the park safe.
Only you can. Well, I don't know.
Only you could prevent forest fires.
Yeah. I don't even know. I'm playing a ton of Hunter Brown. That's the one guy that I'm just playing absolute tons of. We're talking about the expensive pitchers first. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. You took me completely out of my element.
MLB DFS.
Yeah,
so we're talking about.
Thank you.
MLB DFS. The pay-up pitchers. If you're rostering one of these guys, there's no pitchers priced over 10K on DraftKings today, Eric. We do have these 5 pitchers that are in the 9K range, 3 of which are pretty popular. 3 of the most popular pitchers on the slate: Ragans, Peralta, Joe Ryan. Of these 3 pay-up options, which one is your favorite tonight?
Cole Reagans is my favorite of the expensive guys. You've got a lefty, right around a 25% strikeout rate. The Oakland Athletics do against Southpaws. This is the same thing as yesterday, where I'm going to be overweight to the Kansas City pitcher, and I'm going to be overweight to Oakland, mainly because of the pricing. Again, it's the same thing I talked about yesterday. Oakland stacks ended up being a really nice spot to be invested. Schumann, Rooker. I hate Andujar, but he's been decent thus far. I'm just going to play Oakland on the other side in a number of lineups as 2-3-mans, along with being overweight to Cole Reagans, who I think has the best matchup and best strikeout pedigree combination on the map. Garrett Crochet, I think the strikeout stuff is indisputably good, but up against Houston, not nearly as good as pitching in Oakland.
Related to this price tier, what are you expecting out of Garrett Cole in his first start of the season? And do you think he pitches enough into the game to be viable as a DFS option?
I think he's viable as a DFS option, if nothing else, other than he has great strikeout stuff. And we saw him pitch decent enough. 4 1/3 was his last time out in the AAA. I do think there's probably going to be a pretty hard pitch count when it comes to like 85, 90. There's no way that I see many scenarios where I can project him for exceeding that number. I would say, I think he's just appropriately owned. I have 4% of him. He's 7.2%. I'm a little bit under, and that's purely because I'm overweight to Reagans. I'm overweight to Crochet. I'm underweight to Joe Ryan. That should surprise nobody. And then Freddie Peralta, we got to talk about, because he's the guy that I'm the most concerned that I'm underweight to, but he's been a tough roster of late.
All right, so let's start by... All right, so a few things to unpack. First, as far as Garrett Cole goes, I'm with you. Not really a viable pitcher. He's in one of my top 150 lineups. It's just a guy who I assume there was like one lineup where whatever, either ownership was high elsewhere, he showed up. Like, I'm not going to just take him out of that one lineup he's in. No big deal, but certainly not somebody that I think anybody should really be playing in any kind of meaningful amount today. I think the Yankees are going to be really cautious with him as he's coming back from an injury. And, we're almost halfway through the season, and this is a season debut. He's been on the shelf for a while. As far as the popular pitching options go, we do have Reagans at the top. He is also my favorite spend-up pitcher. With that said, I'm underweight to the field on him. It's not because I think he's a poor option. He's in about a third of my lineups. It's kind of similar to yesterday. Before we knew what the weather situation was going to be with Minnesota and we weren't making any changes to our lineups, like I had lineups with Pablo Lopez. I was just a little bit underweight to the field. Reagans kind of similar to me today. In around 30% of my lineups, he's 35% on. There's other pitchers I want to be getting to. As far as Freddie Peralta goes, I am in the same boat as you. I think that this is a very high fantasy upside pitcher. He has a ton of strikeout ceiling. And if he pitches well against the Angels, you could see Freddie Peralta put up like 30 to 40 fantasy points. But there's also kind of a range of outcomes with him. And I'm not getting to him really at his current ownership. I only have 8% of Freddie Peralta, Eric.
I have a little bit more at 14, but again, it's somebody that I'm underweight to. And it's so weird because in the top two pitchers tool, in the top pitchers tool, he's got a top 2 percentage that's rivaling that of Joe Ryan. He's better than Garrett Crochet, which I found to be pretty crazy as well. And I guess it just comes down to what you think happened in his last couple starts, because he got absolutely bludgeoned. And when you're a fastball only pitcher, or fastball primarily, what happens is that if you're missing your location ever so slightly, or you're not getting calls, you're going to have games that just look really, really bad. And, I went through Freddie Peralta's last couple starts last night, and kind of revisiting it here now, I don't have anything that was like majorly concerning. He had 16 swinging strikes in that last start, and yet got completely bludgeoned by Cincinnati. So, there are cases for and against just being massively overweight to him. 16 swinging strikes is no joke, but yet 10 hits, 6 earned. I'm not sure what to be doing with him. I feel like the Angels are a team that I've constantly thought, oh, they're going to be in regression mode. We're going to be targeting them. They've still got a 93 WRC plus, a nearly 150 expected ISO, 150 ISO against righties, which is, whatever. I can't really figure out what I want to do with him, but it's going to look really, really silly if he mows down 9-10 guys. And I was underweight to Freddie Peralta when our data likes him so much.
Well, I can tell you running stuff through the Sims, I just don't get that much of Freddie Peralta. He shows up as being a little bit over-owned by the field here. And also, I've brought this up before. For the people who keep saying that this is a woman's hat, explain to me why the tag says gender neutral. Explain.
Gregory Ehrenberg, how are you on this fun day?
There's no.
I've been looking to coach
If it
you
was
for
four
many
ladies, you wouldn't say
moons.
gender neutral on the inside. It's anybody could wear it and have a good time. It's for cowboys and cow ladies. All right. And by cow ladies, that just means fat chicks. Getting back to the MLB slate now. We've got the these high-end pitchers. Cole Ragans, Freddie Peralta, Joe Ryan, Garrett Crochet, and Garrett Cole. We've already said we don't like Garrett Cole that much because we think he's going to be limited in his pitch count. He's still pretty expensive. Cole Ragans, like him. He's also just really popular. Freddie Peralta, you and I are each underweight to the field on him. What are you going to do with Joe Ryan and Garrett Crochet then, Eric? This is really where most people are building their lineups, is in this price range.
Give me Garrett Crochet. Give me less of Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan, pretty much everybody. It's ironic because the one starter I like is generally Pablo Lopez from my Twins, and he's the guy with the worst ERA out of everybody. But Joe Ryan has a 10.4% barrel percentage. He also has a 27% strikeout rate. He also brings with it an 89 mile per hour average exit velocity with a nearly 20-degree average launch angle. But then he's got a 280 xWOBA. I mean, they're just like cases for and against Joe Ryan ad nauseum. It comes down to being Tampa Bay. They've got a 23.8% K rate against righties. That is up there in the top 10% or the top 10 teams in baseball. 99 WRC plus is now down to 93 over the course of the last 3 weeks. So we're seeing some regression in terms of the bats. Despite what we saw yesterday, you were like, oh, I want to go up against Pablo Lopez. That had more to do with the ownership. You were correct about that from a single entry perspective, if you had followed through and if the weather had been better. But I think today, I just can't get to 25, 26, 27% of a guy like Joe Ryan when I have Garrett Crochet at 15.7% for ownership at the moment. I don't understand why the field is so against rostering him at the moment. It is very, very perplexing to me, considering we have this interesting version of the Houston Astros lineup without Yordan Alvarez. They did throw up all top 5 of their least likely to strike out dudes. I mean, DeBuan goes from the 8-hole to the 2-hole today, which is a little bit annoying, but Crochet still has a 35.7% K rate. I mean, what in the world, dude?
So my lineups are in some ways very similar to the field, in other ways very different. I'm playing a lot of the Dodgers. I am also, to enable myself to play a lot of the Dodgers, and we're going to talk about cheap pitchers here in a second. And yeah, Hunter Brown's popular. I get to a lot of him to get me to pay up to the Dodgers. Yep. I'm also playing a lot of other cheap pitchers today, and that's what's allowing my lineups to still be Dodger stacks while looking different. And then on the top end, I've got the most of Ragans, but still slightly underweight to the field on him. I'm underweight on Peralta, underweight on Joe Ryan, and I don't really have that much of Garrett Crochet or Garrett Cole either. I'm saving salary at pitchers. So let's talk about the next price range, Eric, where there's a big drop off in salary. Cole is $9K. The next most expensive pitcher, it is Gausman at $8,300. Then you got Taj Bradley at $8,000. So let's group in all of these pitchers together from $7K to $8,300, starting at Gausman and then all the way down to Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown is the most popular pitcher in this price range, but nothing crazy. He's 24.5% owned. Bobby Miller in Colorado is 12% owned. Gausman and Bradley each around 20%. What do you make first of the chalk Hunter Brown at 24.5% ownership?
He's my highest owned pitcher, so I hope that I feel pretty good about it. Hunter Brown has really started to ramp things up, and it was always coming down the pipeline. He was really unlucky to start off the season, and I'd say he's still been unlucky basically his 2 years in baseball. Do you know his BABIP perchance off the top of your head?
So I would be lying if I said I knew it off the top of my head, because I'm looking at it right now. I was already pulling up the stats for him. So I just know it's 326, but like I can't pretend that I know it off the top of my head.
Well, look at it from last season too.
330.
What in the world is this BABIP? How does this keep happening to him? Like, one of the things about BABIP, so batting average on balls in play, is that, a pitcher, you like to think when you combine StatCast data, when you combine BABIP and you're looking at everything, you get an idea of like, oh, they either have control over where the ball's going, or, they avoid giving up hard contact because they can't control where the ball's going. And there's like 2 ways of thinking about it from an analytics perspective. But what I do know with Hunter Brown is I see a 3.61 expected ERA and I see a 5 ERA. That is such a wide disparity that there's no doubt in my mind that the BABIP was going to be north of 300 when I looked at it. And sure enough, it was way up there. Career in the bigs to be around a 325, 330 BABIP is just kind of absurd. So Hunter Brown, despite the 1.43 whip, if we can just keep the walks out of the portfolio, 9.8% walk rate, I think he just goes completely nuts here against the White Sox. They have an 83 WRC plus against righties on the, or sorry, 77 WRC plus, worse in baseball against right-handed pitching on the season, 23.6% K rate. And you look at these individual hitters. I mean, yeah, it is just going to be a field day if Hunter Brown has his normal stuff and doesn't get unlucky just like he has in the last couple of starts, and it's looked awesome.
We've got some super chats here. First off, shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. As always, Chris, thank you very much for supporting the channel. And then Melissa Harvey has left us a super chat. It says, for the love of God, it is not a cowboy hat. Disagree. This is a matter of opinion. It's up for debate, very much like the check swing rule in baseball. It's umpire's discretion. So I'm the umpire here. I rule it a cowboy hat.
Hang on, can we get a side by side of him with the guy from Get Out with the cowboy hat on, or with the hat on, the one who gets, Jordan Klein, you've seen Get Out. That's what this reminds me of. Okay. Oh, no, we don't.
We could face swap.
We don't.
Him.
No, we do not. No, we do not. But I'm saying that's what the hat looks like. That I think is the closest to that hat and style and variety that I've seen in a while. And let me just tell you, that movie is not for the faint of heart. It's a pretty ridiculous movie and pretty scary. I'm going to be dead serious. So it's not a compliment, Greg.
And this cowboy hat could be yours for just $15 at Costco. Melissa Harvey, the other part of her super chat is, and cow lady is not a real word. And she says, sincerely, a 4th generation Texan. Well, I am a 5th generation Texan, Melissa. And another thing to add to this is women can be cowboys too. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself. Anybody can do anything. So there we go. We settled that. Everybody can do anything. Just you got to have an open heart.
I hate today.
All right. Let's see if we go back to the pitching. Yeah. So I'm on the same page as you. Hunter Brown is my most rostered pitcher on the entire slate. And here's the positive. His underlying numbers are pretty okay. 3.61 expected ERA, 4.43 FIP. It ties into what you were saying, though, is it has some sort of expectation he's going to have a league average BABIP. That has not been the case so far in his career. We'll see what that means going forward. But even if he does have BABIP issues, there's always going to be some sort of strikeout upside, which I know I'm not adding anything all that different from what you had said, but I'm actually, if anything, kind of surprised Hunter Brown isn't more popular.
100% on board with you. I talked about him this morning on Pick 6, talked about him last night as somebody that is probably going to be undervalued by the field, by the marketplace, by wherever. And that's kind of what came to fruition. I mean, Hunter Brown is really, really good. And somebody's brought up, he's a extreme ground ball pitcher. Extreme is strange. Like, I think extreme being north of 60%. He's sitting at 50.8%. He has a 24.3% fly ball rate. It's been north of 20% at the bigs for him. He's had times where the ground ball rate looks pretty good, but I got to say, the main thing to me that's so weird is like the curveball is up so much over last season in terms of vertical movement. It's nearly 2 inches difference, which is a gigantic difference. Everybody insert your jokes there, but I'm pretty positive that the curveball is going to start generating a lot more swing and miss. The knuckle curve specifically going to start generating a lot more swing and miss for Hunter Brown. And we're going to see 10, 11 strikeout games coming sooner rather than later.
Yeah, a lot of other people saying I look like the guy from Curious George. Hey, he's the man in the hat.
Hey, a little bit.
I like it.
A little bit.
I like it.
You're like a Adam
Renegade
Long
cowboy?
who took the short bus. That's what you look like. You can have like a little Adam Long to you.
I mean, I did, but it was just because I was in smaller classes with a select group of kids in really my entire upbringing. It was specialized. It was because I needed special attention because I was so much just smarter and gifted than everybody else. But yeah, lots of other good comments about the hat in chat. And really, I mean, it's good. I'm just happy to see people responding and that they're enjoying the hat. We're creating conversation. That's what's important for today, the Cowboy. So if we go ahead and look at the other cheap pitchers to get to on the slate, Eric, and once again, we're talking about the guys 8,300 to 7,000. Who else do you like in this pricing range that you're getting to outside of Hunter Brown?
Taj Bradley, I like. I like getting to him against my Minnesota Twins. We've seen improvement against righties. We're up to 107 WRC plus, eighth best in baseball, 22.3% K rate. Something that could definitely have some movement going up as Byron Buxton is now healthy and playing on a more everyday basis. So with Byron Buxton and his 30% K rate in against righties, that is something that I expect isn't completely being personified there, but as I go through it, I mean, it's just going to be around the field on him, going to be around the field on a couple of other pieces here. Sean Manaea sitting at 7%, I have 8. Bobby Miller, I've got 10%. I'm curious, you did say that there's like a cheapie that you're getting to a lot other than Hunter Brown. Who is it?
So going back to my pitcher exposures, it is something similar to what I did a good amount yesterday, which didn't really work out. But Bobby Miller, I mean, when you get a pitcher who has talent that's low owned against the Colorado Rockies, that is going to be of interest to me. Walker Buehler absolutely shit the bed yesterday. That was no good, very bad, terrible outing for him. Bobby Miller so far this year has only made 3 starts. We haven't seen all that much of him. Last year in his rookie season, he was pretty solid. 3.76 ERA, 3.4 expected ERA. He was generating some strikeouts as well. He also has ridiculously good stuff, Bobby Miller. So at a cheap price point for him, I think he's worthwhile for upside in GPPs. So at 12% ownership, I think he's one of the kind of the same things I said about Walker Buehler yesterday, and just hoping that Bobby Miller doesn't totally suck.
Yeah, Bobby Miller just chucks it, dude. He just chucks it. We're gonna see 100 on the gun a couple times. It's always fun to watch starters like Skeens, like Jerry Jones back when he was good a couple weeks ago. Bobby Miller now. It's fun to watch guys throw 99, 100 repeatedly and just attack hitters on the edges of the plate. It's an enjoyable experience. So him, four-seamer changeup, got to set up that changeup a little bit more at altitude. That's going to be something that he'll still rely on. That changeup 42 pitches total, 107 expected batting average against sub 100 batting average. So if that fastball is, finding the strike zone and he can set up that changeup curveball, he is just a ridiculous pitcher that last season, really wild to see him with just a 23.6% K rate. I brought it up all the time. Couldn't believe that with his mix of stuff, and you go to Fangraphs and look at the stuff, and you go to the index and you basically look at stuff plus, it's just like, everything showed you that Bobby Miller should have a 30% strikeout rate. It's early, but 36% K rate, and you get the Rockies. I know it's altitude, but good luck hitting 100. Have fun, guys.
That's another part too, is one of the main reasons that Coors Field is tough on pitcher, other than just the altitude and what it leads to the ball traveling, is it's also harder for pitchers to throw breaking stuff. You know what translates to Coors Field? Throwing the ball 101 miles per hour.
Sure
if
does.
Bobby Miller has his ace stuff today, he's going to strike out people no matter what the ballpark is. So I do kind of gravitate towards Bobby Miller a little bit because of that anyway. But he's my biggest overweight stand on the slate.
I'll probably get a little bit more. Again, it doesn't take much to talk me into Bobby Miller. I lost so much money betting his K props last season. They'd be like 4.5 against Cincy or 5.5 against Oakland, or just like some of these ridiculous spots. And I'm like, I'm going to ladder him to the moon. And every time he'd be like, he'd go 5 innings, 6 innings, 3 strikeouts. And I would just be left in just paralysis. Couldn't believe what I was watching. But teams really do basically say, all right, you're going to throw it 99, 100. We're going to guess fastball early. And he kind of gets after it there. But from a DFS perspective, he is going to be a juggernaut in the future.
And I'm seeing more nice comments in the chat. Like Sotex, for instance. Sotex said, the more I watch Greg with the cowboy hat, the more I think I need a cowboy hat like that one now. The other thing I'll add too, I was playing golf the other day, just firing darts with my wedges at the pins the other day. It wasn't me. It was almost entirely the hat. So that's something that I would like to add as additional information for you guys. It's something that it's available over at Costco for less than $15. And one of the best ways that you could find that money, that spare money in your pocket, Eric, is you sign up at Underdog using the link we have below. They got a deposit bonus of up to $250. You use that to grow your bankroll. You deposit some of it. You head on down to Costco, get yourself a nice $15 cowboy hat. Go check it out. Only way to do it, though, is to sign up at Underdog using the link that we have below in the description box. Any other pitchers that are important to you in this 8K range, Eric? We got Gausman 20% owned, Taj Bradley 20%. Either those guys or any of the other contrarian options that stand out to you?
Yeah, I wish Gaussman just threw a splitter every single time. That would make life easier because otherwise, got a 10.8% barrel percentage. It's weird because I put him and Joe Ryan in like the same category where, yeah, some of the other stuff for Kevin Gaussman hasn't been as good as Joe Ryan, but both of them north of a 10% barrel percentage, both of them sitting, around the same strikeout rates. And Kevin Gaussman just, I don't know what to make. Just throw the splitter all the time, dude. Throw it all the time. He's just a guy that I'm getting to 15%. I'm not really making any kind of a big stand. I guess the only guy that's left to talk about is Cade Povich, 5,800. I'm taking some shots against the Yankees. We obviously don't have Aaron Judge in this lineup, so that's something to make note of. That can be a strikeout bat, but it can also be a dude who hits it 450 feet on you. So there's that. I think Cade Povich is not going to be like a strikeout guy, but he's a southpaw. It's a 2.75 expected ERA is a lot better than a 4.76 ERA. And maybe this is just because Cannon worked out so well for me that I was kind of looking on the cheap end and trying to find something. I think Cade Povich, I don't feel nearly as good about him as I did Cannon yesterday because I don't think he has that one pitch like Cannon does where he's going to generate swing and miss. But I think he can survive here at 5,800 and get you more Dodger exposure.
Let's look at the punt options on the slate, none of whom are picking up any kind of meaningful ownership. Andrew Heaney, 6,500, 3% on. Cade Povich, 3% on against the Yankees. We got Luis Medina, 2% on against the Royals. Ryan Feltner against the Dodgers. He's only 1% owned. Punt options, anybody you're going to be taking meaningful shots on? And once again, none of these guys have any kind of ownership.
Yeah, I have 9% of Maury Povich's son. I don't think that's true, but it sounded cool. And then Ryan Feltner's 5K. I have 4% of him. There are cases for and against Ryan Feltner. First off, he's pitching in Coors Field against arguably the best offense in baseball. I know Mookie Betts is out. We all know Mookie Betts is out, but still, this offense is ridiculous. And two lefties in Freeman and Ohtani that make life pretty miserable. You're going to get Lux. You're going to get Hayward. You're going to get all these other dudes that definitely make life interesting. But I want to at least point out some of the weird stuff that's going on with Ryan Feltner that doesn't have me jamming the Dodgers the same way that I did yesterday. At the same time that we've seen massive home road splits for him, meaning that his home numbers are just not good because he pitches at Coors Field, and that's kind of the way things can go. He does have a 3.33 xFIP at home. So while batters are slashing 331, 364, 528 against him at home this season, and that's resulted in a sky-high ERA, 6.89 here on the season. He's got a 3.33 xFIP, Greg, and I feel like at a flat 5K, if I'm trying to get to other offenses, I don't think it's the craziest thing to have a little bit of Feltner at 1% in your lineups.
It's a little crazy. It's so if I'm rostering one of these guys, I lean more towards Luis Medina than to Ryan Feltner. I actually do have about 10% of Medina. He's only 2% owned. So that's a way that I slightly prefer to be contrarian, but it's not like anything. I've got 10% of them. If I was playing one lineup, Luis Medina, sure, shit wouldn't be in it, but just in the way of spending up for Dodgers bats and being contrarian, he got into some of my lineups in The Sims.
Way better ballpark, way better situation, way better matchup. It's not like some great illustrious strikeout spot going up against Kansas City, 19.1% K rate against right-handed pitching on the season. But I'm just going to repeat, 5K is 5K, and you want to get to, I'm looking at targeting Povich a little bit with some Yankees bats, getting to Volpe, Soto, Stanton, getting to some of the expensive bats from Boston in Devers at 5,500, Tyler O'Neill 5K, 5,200 for Duran. Lots of guys that 5K and up that you can still get exposure to more by getting to Feltner. And then obviously you're just not going to be playing the Dodgers against it, which if you're playing one lineup or a 3 max, it's weird to say, like, I've actually contemplated playing Feltner in single entry today because obviously if the Dodgers go nuclear, they're going to be the highest owned team in single entry. But in the event that he just survives at 5K, there's enough strikeout upside on the rest of these pitchers that maybe this is not the most viable way to go about it. But I keep landing on him, and I do think that there's enough strikeouts that exist there in this Dodger lineup that it sounds crazy. I know it definitely sounds crazy, but Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Pages, these guys are 27, 28% strikeout guys. And again, Feltner, 3.33 xFIP at home is a little bit wild to me.
Yeah, seeing lots of more chatter about the hat. I like the question
I
that we
don't.
had News God post in there. He wanted to know, where did Greg get the hat from? And correct answers, not approved based on that question there. Buccaneer said, holy shit, is that an Amish hat, Greg? Incorrect. Cowboy hat. So if we go ahead, anything else you want to add to pitchers? If not, we'll look at the FanDuel side of pitching.
No, I just kind of want to wrap Amish Paradise just for you. Jebediah
Amish Parrot.
Fixich Kitchen,
Have you
Jacob
ever seen
Plows.
have you ever seen the reality show where they have, there's the what's it called? Where they try to integrate the Amish kids into society?
Yep, Breaking Amish, yeah.
Yeah, Breaking Amish. That's wild.
Been spending most our lives living in an Amish paradise.
I mean, yeah, you got the show where they put the what is it called though when the Amish are freed into the outside world?
I don't know.
All right, what is it called?
I have absolutely no.
Rumspringa. What happens is kids turn 16 and they just let them go out when they've lived their entire lives as being Amish. And so what happens is then they just go into the real world. And then from there, they make a decision. Do they want to be a part of society, or do they want to stick and be Amish? And you just have these kids go berserk because like they'd never been exposed to anything other than farming and whatnot. Now all of a sudden there's drugs and alcohol and stuff involved. And there's a reality show based around the Rumspring, which
you would be probably like
watching.
the first Amish Jewish person that I've ever met, because almost all of them are. It's biblical, right? Because I know they have in Amish Paradise they drop Bible, so I'm assuming. I don't know. These are just guesses I have.
Yeah, Rumspringa, Buccaneers bring it up in chat. But to clarify, cowboy hat. This is a cowboy hat.
Greg is just so bad that not everybody's on board with his hat the same way he is. Like from the second he saw it, he needed to have it, and he needed to wear it to look like the biggest douche in New Jersey.
Impossible. It is not possible to be the biggest douche in New Jersey. It is.
That's definitely true.
It is a
That's an elite
hill to climb up. Have you ever seen like the Jersey Shore? Those are real people that actually exist. It's its own. It's not actually what people are like in New Jersey, but it's what people in a certain section of New Jersey look like, and it is tough to outdouche those people, no matter how cool your cowboy hat is. Over on FanDuel, we've got Cole Ragans projected for 22% ownership. Kevin Gausman is, believe it or not, 16% owned over on FanDuel, Eric. So those are your two most popular pitchers on FanDuel, although not all that far behind. Frey Peralta, he's 14% owned at 9,500. Hunter Brown is 14% owned at 7,800. So you kind of got a wide range of pricing amongst the chalky pitching options. At the top, Ragans 10,600, and then you got Hunter Brown down at 7,800. Who's your favorite GPP pitcher on FanDuel, factoring in price as well as ownership?
I'm not playing FanDuel today. Yesterday I had one lineup. It had Walker Buehler, and I don't think I've pulled up FanDuel since. Hunter Brown probably at 7,800. You can do whatever you want bats wise, and I mean I have Hunter Brown projected like 1.5 points behind Cole Ragans, which is probably a little bit aggressive, but at the same time, I don't think it's that crazy off. I mean, what do we have Hunter Brown for here, just from a projection standpoint? It is not that far off on this slate. So yeah, I'd probably just be looking at going pretty overweight to Hunter Brown and moving on with my life.
I see it the same way as you. I mean, already as is, Hunter Brown's my most rostered pitcher on DraftKings. And at the $7,800 price point on FanDuel, here are the other pitchers that are priced around him. You've got Sean Manaea's $7,300 against the Texas Rangers. Brian Bayo, $7,600 on the road against the Toronto Blue Jays. Andrew Heaney, who, I mean, like if somebody had an Andrew Heaney lineup, I wouldn't think it's the end of the world because he has some strikeout upside, but still he's $7,100. But these are the players that Hunter Brown is priced around. Also, Kevin Gausman's 8,000. It's not all that much different either, but he is more popular. So Hunter Brown in the good matchup against the Chicago White Sox, his strikeout upside, and 13.7% ownership. It's not insignificant, but it's not crazy either. If I was building one lineup, Hunter Brown would be the pitcher on FanDuel.
With you.
All right, let's build some lineups. Let's build some lineups in the lineup generator. Jordan Klein, do us. Oh, he's already got it pulled up. Let's start with DK, and let's go. All stack types, and then we'll build some balanced lineups.
Let's party.
Let's do it. I was born to party. That's why I'm dressed like this.
We like to party. Stop it. Please stop it. Please. You're making everybody uncomfortable.
I don't know about that. Watch I win a GPP today. If I win a GPP today, that's coming out every day. I already know how the bit's going to go in my head. Everybody's going to love this hat. Jordan, put up a poll. Should I wear the hat tomorrow?
No, stop it.
I'm curious what the people think. They want to see the hat again tomorrow. Oh boy, look at this already. Shohei Ohtani is in north of half of our lineups in the lineup gender. He is once again 7K over on DraftKings. Willie Adames showing up in a bunch of lineups, then Jason Hayward, Andy Pages. At pitcher, I see Cole Ragan showing up as well as Hunter Brown. So those are the two pitchers we're getting the most of. And if you are building a cash game lineup on DraftKings, I do think the most sensible pitching options to go to are Ragans as well as Hunter Brown. Gives you a lot of flexibility to pay up for those Dodgers bats. Click on the stack exposures, Jordan. Yeah, tons of Dodgers today. They're in nearly everything. We've also got the Brewers in about half of our lineups. Some Blue Jays exposure there as well. For large field GPPs, Eric, how are you going to handle the Dodgers, who are once again going to be popular? They've been popular each of the last two slates against the Colorado Rockies, and they've delivered as chalk. They've scored 11 and 9 runs as the most popular offense on the slate. Once again today, they are 14% owned, but with 23% odds being the top scoring team. Is this going to be your most rostered stack in GPPs?
Yes, but not nearly as much as I had yesterday. Yesterday was like full send Los Angeles Dodgers. And other than Freddie Freeman, who there was one lineup that I just kept staring at, big fat nothing from Freddie Freeman. I think he had 2 fantasy points from scoring a run, or had a walk and then got driven into 4 total fantasy points. But I needed something from Freddie Freeman that was substantial, and I would have won a lot more money. But I am looking at the Dodgers. They are my highest owned stack in large field, but yesterday I had north of 40% stacks of them. Today, that is not going to be the case. I've got them in 24% of stacks. I'm okay with that, but the one team that I'm just, well, actually, I'll save that here for a second. I'll save it.
Eric, they're in half my lineups. I can't get away from the Dodgers. They're in everything. They're in everything for me. And another thing too is, while they are very popular, they're not even that much more popular than some of the other chalk teams. I was like, the Milwaukee Brewers are projected for 13% ownership compared to the 14% ownership on the Dodgers. The Dodgers are certainly going to be popular in single entry, but I don't even know that they're going to be by far the most popular team, because I do think there's a lot of ownership going to Toronto today, a lot of ownership going to Milwaukee. I think that, well, it's probably because mostly the price tags. If you're willing to spend down at pitcher today, it's not all that difficult to get up to the Dodgers. And I don't think they're going to be insanely popular. They're going to be popular, but not too insanely popular.
I don't know. It feels like they're going to be pretty damn popular. We still got left on left. I mean, we broke down what the splits were specifically for trying to think of Austin Gomber yesterday, where he was giving up a ton of power to lefties, and Freddie Freeman only ended up like 10%, which I felt good about full sending him, even though it didn't work out. Had a lot of Shohei Ohtani, but he ended up 25-26%. I think we still see quite a bit of ownership. The one thing I do want to throw out there, and this is something that I'm throwing into Premium Discord and have it all set and ready to rock once we get this Dodgers lineup out, because we still are waiting on that, are we not?
Let's see.
I've not seen it yet.
Do we have that confirmed yet?
Hasn't shown up in my sheet yet.
We have the Dodgers lineup.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So I've got Hayward, Lux, Biggio, all of them from a total basis perspective. So yesterday, this is like my favorite betting thing that I've been doing all season long, and I cannot tell you how fun it has been. The Rockies. Anytime you get lefties that are major platoon guys, you are getting a lot of value if you jump in early. And we've already seen Gavin Lux get bet from plus 140 down to plus 125, plus 135 down to plus 120, down to plus 110 now for Jason Hayward in total bases. Bet these guys, because there's only Jalen Beeks, and he pitched 29 pitches yesterday. They've had some back and forth availability for him, where once in a while he will pitch back to back, even coming off of 20 plus pitches. But for the most part, they've been cautious at times with him there. They will want to utilize him. And if they do, it's probably going to be Ohtani Freeman that they'll do it on. But let's just say, there's no doubt in my mind that with all of these other righties that you've got with the Rockies, you are getting an undervalued spot to be able to attack some of these total basis props. And so if you're heading over to Underdog, probably not going to be as ideal for the sponsor of our program or other pick'em spots. Probably not the place you want to be utilizing it. But over at Sportsbooks, where you're getting plus money for 3 or 4 of these platoon guys that I think are just more secure to be in the lineup there, because every other bullpen arm coming out is going to be right-handed today.
There's a contrarian stack that the field is not getting to for good reasons that brings a lot of leverage that I'm very strongly considering in single entry. Do you want to guess what that team is?
The Boston Red Sox.
The Chicago White Sox.
Okay.
Because as much as Hunter Brown is my most rostered pitcher in large field tournaments, a big part of it is, he's got the good matchup, there's strikeout upside, but also the fact that his ownership isn't crazy high. It's 24%. In single entry, I think he's going to be way more popular than that. And I don't think anybody's going to be going to the Chicago White Sox. Neither you or I are playing Hunter Brown today and being like, this is an ace who can't miss. It's just like, hey, this is a guy who has a good matchup with a lot of strikeout upside. I'm really strongly considering playing the Chicago White Sox in single entry and just being the only one who rosters them.
I don't hate it. I like Oakland more for leverage against Reagan's just because of the pricing and how it works out. But I don't fault you. Hunter Brown has definitely ran into some random luck. And we brought up his BABIP how many times? Again, whether you think he can be in control of where the ball is hit and the direction it is hit and things of that nature, that's up to your discretion and how you view the statistics. But 9.8% walk rate is irrefutable, where if that thing gets loaded up for somebody, there's certainly power that exists in specific White Sox bats. And some guys in Tommy Pham and Luis Robert and Andrew Vaughn even is starting to hit the ball better. 455 expected slugging. I remember looking at Andrew Vaughn being like, is he going to get DFA'd at some point with how bad his start was? DeYoung now moved to the 6 hole, but we still know he's got nearly a 45% hard hit. And then Corey Lee, so much better than Martin Maldonado. Is it Martin Maldonado who's the other guy there? Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. He's just so horrendous. But Corey Lee, a decent enough catching option there. He strikes out a bunch, but still going to be somebody that I think long-term is going to look better in the home run department than what we saw. 65 at-bats last season. Only 7 homers now in 261 plate appearances at the big league level, but had showed a little bit more than that at his time at Cal. That was why he was a first-round pick once upon a time.
Let's build some lineups for FanDuel. Then we'll talk about the rest of the stacks we're getting to. Then it'll be time for our home run picks. If you guys have not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And don't forget, if you want to sign up for any of the packages here at Stokastic, sign up using the link below in the YouTube description box. We got our packages already loaded in there. Anything you sign up with also is going to get you access to our Discord channel. And I also want to check to see if we have any questions that have come to us in Discord, which we do have some here. Melissa, who is once again reminding me that she is a 4th-generation Texan, and that is no cowboy hat. Once again, agree to disagree. Einstein, he wants to know any interest in Andrew Heaney against the Mets. As a contrarian option, yeah, I have more than 1% of him. I wouldn't recommend him to anybody playing like 1, 2, 3 lineups, but yeah, I do have mild interest in Andrew Heaney for really low ownership to have him at least in a few lineups. Yourself, Eric?
Yeah, Andrew Heaney, a couple of lineups, 4%. I guess the one pitcher we didn't even bring up, where did he just go? That I do have some of. Sean Manaea, did we talk about him at all? I have 12% of him. He's 4% owned. Didn't even bring him up earlier, but that was something that I was still updating some of my lineups, and just has more to do with the price point than it does anything else. Also, if he has a decent enough strikeout rate, which he does this season and has his entire career, that more than makes up in tournaments for the fact that he could be a blow-up risk purely because he's 4% owned today.
Yeah, for the low ownership Einsteinium, I think that if you have an otherwise chalky lineup, a good way to differentiate is certainly by going to Heaney there. He's somebody who I've pretty frequently played in GPPs this year just because of how crazy low owned he's been all the time. Mr. Coolcam asked us about FanDuel. We're going to build some FanDuel lineups right now. And then Eric and I will talk about what it is that we like for the FanDuel side of things. If you look at our lineups here, it is a lot of Dodgers at the top. Shohei Ohtani in 80% of our lineups nearly. Then we got Freddie Freeman in 60%. Then you're seeing lots of Blue Jays in there. Teoscar Hernandez, last night's hero, he's in there as well. I'm not seeing any pitchers at the top, so it looks like we're pretty spread out at FanDuel pitcher. Yeah. Scroll down a little, Jordan. Let's see what we have for pitchers. Freddie Peralta in 23%. Gausman in 20%. Ragan 17%. Yeah, it's really spread out, which makes sense. I don't think there's like one pitcher that's way better than everybody else. I lean towards Hunter Brown, but it's not like with a bullet where I'm like uber confident in that for FanDuel.
Neither am I.
Let's see those stacks. Dodgers, Blue Jays, Brewers, which also I don't have any real issue with, but Mr. Coolcam wants to know, what is our favorite stack on FanDuel who is not the Dodgers, Eric?
Going to probably be, it's just a little bit different because not playing there today, so I haven't looked at it as much. Definitely am going to be bypassing Milwaukee on DK. I got to expect that at 15% ownership share, I'd be bypassing it again. Tyler Anderson's been decent. I can't believe that the field wants to be jamming against them or against him as much as what they do. I would probably say Colorado going up against Bobby Miller. We're running into positive leverage there, 5% ownership share. Same thing as Bueller yesterday. There's a case for, getting knocked up pretty quick up there at altitude. They've got a 4.5 implied run total, and you're probably going to be combining them with the Dodgers and just looking at Coors Field and saying, hey, give me the entire game environment. So I'm actually going to say Colorado would be my favorite for tournaments over there.
Royals for me, you're getting low ownership on the Royals who, we've talked about this numerous times over the last couple of years. The Royals are okay as a real life offense, but their upside for fantasy is much higher. There's power in the lineup. They steal bases. They've got a superstar in there in Bobby Witt Jr. as well. And they've got a great matchup against Luis Medina. Like on DraftKings, if you need to save salary and you have Medina lineup, it's not the end of the world because he's so cheap. He's unknown. Nobody's playing him at all, but he's terrible. And a Royals team that's getting no ownership at all over on FanDuel, 5% to the Royals. That's something that interests me for GPPs. Over on DraftKings as well, I think it's an under-owned team at 5% ownership. So you don't have, the field isn't playing the Royals. The field also isn't playing Luis Medina, considering the price tags on each side and the potential upside, especially on the Royal side. It doesn't make all that much sense to me. So I think it's an overall good game for DFS purposes. Mr. Coolcam, I'm going to go with the Kansas City Royals as my answer here. Eric, let's talk about the rest of the stacks on the slate. Outside of the really popular ones we talked about, also, I'm on the same page as you when it comes to Milwaukee. I have Milwaukee in 4% of lineups today. It's a team that's projected for 13% ownership. Of the two super chalky teams, I think the Dodgers are a far better chalky stack than the Brewers are tonight. But that aside, what are the other stacks that you're getting yourself a good amount of exposure to outside of the ones we've already talked about?
I love my Twins today. I also love Taj Bradley. I think the only thing that's keeping me away from jamming Taj Bradley today, got him in right around the field, 20% of lineups, is how many other strikeout arms there are here. Because there's no doubt that he's got the kind of stuff that could mow dudes down. But then my Twins are up to top 10 in WRC plus against righties, everything across the board. With this lineup, top to bottom, we get some expensive bats, we get some cheap relief, we get, even power with Santana and Buxton at the bottom of this lineup. 411 isn't exactly nothing for an expected slugging. 43.5% hard hit for Buxton, not exactly nothing. We know the pedigree he can have. Vasquez and Martin aren't nearly as exciting for me as, getting some of the top tier guys that we've had playing outfield for us at the time, or Jose Miranda not in the lineup. Ryan Jeffers, the catcher, things have fallen off a little bit, even though he still has a 427 expected slugging. He won't be in the lineup today, but 1 through 7, Minnesota going up against Taj Bradley with his 43.2% hard hit, 14.7% barrel percentage on the season. This is one of those spots where I think on other slates, I would be well overweight to both sides of it, but Minnesota, I've gotten double-digit lineups.
I have so much of the Dodgers. I don't have any other team even in double-digit amount of lineups. But with that being said, I mentioned I have some interest in the White Sox. I just locked my lineups and I am going to play the White Sox in single entry today. Okay. So that is a spot that I am willing to be getting to. But yeah, a little bit overweight to the field, like I mentioned before, on the Kansas City Royals. Another team as well that I think you could make a little bit of a case for today is potentially going to the Houston Astros against Garrett Crochet. And it's not because of me thinking it's a good matchup for them or anything. It's just because the Astros are so low priced for the matchup. And it's a really good hitter's park in Chicago as well. So the Astros are a team that I'm getting a little bit of exposure to. It's very rare that you're going to see this team being priced this cheaply. Let's pull up the Astros prices here. So I have them all in front of me, but so Altuve's 5,200. He's the only player in the entire lineup that's more expensive than 4K. Bregman is 4K. You've also got other hitters in the lineup. Jeremy Pena,
Mhm.
he's $3,900. Yanier Diaz has been one of the best hitting, catching eligible players in baseball this year. He's $3,800. So it's not necessarily that I'm expecting big things from them. It's just they fit into lineups easily because of how cheap they are. I really like them as one-offs as well.
Don't mind it whatsoever.
Anything else you want to add at stacks and offense?
No, I'm pretty spread out with some of these other stacks. I have a little bit of Boston, I'm under the field. I have a little bit of Tampa Bay under the field, even though I really want to go after Joe Ryan if he's going to be as popular as we have projected. But it doesn't feel like, unless you are taking the risk of rostering Houston, rostering Oakland, that you're getting the kind of leverage against some of these other pitchers that you'd really want to get on a slate of this size. It's a smaller slate, but like, there's so many of these pitchers that you kind of want to just be mixing and matching. So for me, Minnesota, a team that I'm going to be taking an overweight stance to. Also going to be taking an overweight stance to Colorado, where on DK they're 3% owner, 3% owned. Everything I talked about with them on the FanDuel side applies here as well. Bobby Miller, I feel better about just because of the pure velocity than I did Walker Buehler yesterday. Still made a case for the Walker Buehler side of things, and it ended up definitely being the Colorado side. But anytime you get Coors Field under-owned, which is pretty much what you're looking at here with Colorado, 2.1% leverage. That is the second most leverage next to the Dodgers. So if you want to go all in Coors today, pretty good day to do it.
Home run pick time? Want to do some home run picks?
Let's do it.
All right, guys in chat, feel free to chime in and tell us who you guys are picking at a home run. But until we get to your guys' picks, we'll give you a second to load them in. Eric, who is your dong of the night?
All right. Well, I can't just go out and, well, I guess you don't want Coors Field, so I can't do Gavin Lux, right? He only has one home run the year, so.
Who did you pick?
I want to go Gavin Lux, but he only has one home run the year, but he's in Coors.
I don't care how many home runs he's had for the year. It's illegal. It's disallowed. I'm curious, what are his home run prop odds?
High. They're pretty darn high. I saw it earlier today. I mean, I know I have the plus 140 total bases. That's now plus 125, but either way.
All right. You know what? He's plus 900 homer. I'm going to allow it. Eric's allowed to take Gavin Lux.
He's plus 1,000 on Caesars right now for the people. Shop for the best line. He has plus 1,000. Gavin Lux, 10-1, goes in Coors.
All right. Yeah, there it is. And you guys can see the odds that we have up there from Odd Shopper. And what do we have is the projected odds from the homer. It's a little bit small for me to see.
It's going to be closer to like the plus 900 type number, plus 925.
Yeah, I was just trying to see what the expected win rate was. It's just hard to see over Zoom because the number comes up so blurry. But all right, I'll allow it. I will allow it. Eric is going with Gavin Lux. I'm going to say that is cool in the gang. I'm going to go with Yanier Diaz. He is my second most rostered catcher. Number one is unfortunately Austin Barnes, but that's just really a product of him playing in Coors Field, and he's cheap. That makes him my most rostered catcher. But if I'm going to somebody who's outside of Coors Field that I'm overweight to the field to, I've got exposure in the teens to Yanier Diaz. This is a catcher with power. He also does have a platoon advantage. It's a park upgrade. It's a really tough matchup against Garrett Crochet, but people aren't playing Yanier Diaz, and he's a very cheap catcher with home run upside. That is appealing to me. Yanier Diaz, home run pick of the day. Let's see what we have for chat's picks now. In chat, we have Ryan Stubbs is going with Trent Grisham. Okay, some of these. All right, here we go. All right, Francisco Rubio is going with Harwitz. Doug Dobbs has got JD Martinez. Clintwood 83 is going with Adolis Garcia. Michael Roundtree has Mark Ventos. Andre B has Gunnar tonight. Gunnar Henderson, who is second in baseball in homers behind Aaron Judge. Andy Millman's got Gary Sanchez. Chad Rock's got Rafael Devers. Blake Moore going with Jose Altuve. Sotex has got Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And Sotex, I know you said before you're looking for one of these cowboy hats. Just head on over to Costco. Other ones that we have here, it is Zach Gaskins also going with Adolis Garcia. Malukar has gone with Giancarlo Stanton. Junior Whopper has got Contreras today. We've got Gavin Sheets from Jose Mora. We've also got Eric Nelson going with Vinny Pasquantino. We've got Brandon also going with Adolis Garcia. Lots of people going with Adolis Garcia. Jetty's got MJ Melendez. Charable Cortex has got Mark Ventos. We've also got Pete Alonso from both Alex Serra and Ricardo Nelson. Aaron Hines going to Luis Robert. We've got Paul DeYoung. Paul Duong. Paul Duong is going to Ryan. Paul Duong, you should be forced to pick Paul DeYoung every single day. We've got Ryan O'Hearn. Greg Kell has got Ben Rice, and Devin Klein also going to Adolis Garcia. I think like 25% of people picked Adolis Garcia to homer today. But guys, that is going to do it for Jordan Klein. Who's your home run pick?
That's the most cheating.
Jordan, once again, cheating. He's going to be going with Shohei Ohtani, which, yeah, really going out on a limb, Jordan. Really going out on a limb and picking the clear most likely player to homer on the entire slate, cheating the entire thing. We've got Brent Rooker from Fred Louis, and then AJ Verse going to Zach Geloff. So we'll cleanse her pound with some contrarian home run picks. So, all right, Jordan going with Shohei Ohtani being a real pussy over there. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you have not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, check out Underdog if you haven't already. We do have free best ball projections over at Stochastic. So if you want to sign up and do some best ball drafts, use our projection. You just have to make an account on our site and it's totally free. Other than that, guys, have a great night. Good luck. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Peace out.